Kingdom Rush is a game that is very near and dear to my heart. I've been playing it ever since I was a little baby boy on my family laptop on some random ass Flash website. In fact, the reason that I have a special place for Kingdom Rush in my heart is because it's actually one of the first games that I ever remember playing by myself. I mean, there were probably other Flash games that I played before it, maybe Age of War, maybe Fireboy and Water Girl with my sister, but Kingdom Rush is the first game that I ever properly remember playing, and it was an absolutely magical experience. It really was love at first sight. And because of that, I decided to make a little return to Kingdom Rush, even though it's not the usual content that I make on this channel, And the reason that I decided to make my return is because Kingdom Rush is, hopefully celebrating its 15th year anniversary around the time this video comes out. I mean, knowing myself, this video might come out like a month after Kingdom Rush is done with its whole 15th year anniversary celebration, but I'm hoping for the best, okay? I'm having trust in myself that I'll be able to get this video out when the celebration actually happens, hopefully on the day of the celebration. Now, full disclaimer, I will be 100% completing Kingdom Rush. I'll be getting every single achievement, beating every single level, every single mini-campaign, and every single Iron and Heroic challenge. And actually, that's not the only thing I have in store for you, because over the span of the next few days, I'll be posting a new video each day completing a new Kingdom Rush game until we make it through all of them. Now, when I first hopped into this challenge, I decided to play all of the games chronologically, meaning I start with Kingdom Rush 1. And I thought Kingdom Rush 1 would be a nice little introduction into the series, right? Oh my god, dude, how the fuck are you supposed to defeat all these wolves? Getting me to warm up to the games again, right? Alright, I remember this level's Iron and Heroic challenges being pretty hard. However, I forgot one major detail about the Kingdom Rush series. And that's the fact that the first game in the series, this level is fucking impossible. I'm calling it. The original level was impossible, but this fucking Iron and Heroic challenges are genuinely gonna make me rip my fucking hair out. Might genuinely be the hardest one in the entire Kingdom Rush franchise. I can't use my meteor shower in the first wave of Lycans because then I die to the second wave of Lycans. But then if I save my meteor shower and use it in the second wave of Lycans, then the first wave of Lycans will just fucking run through and kill me. I just don't understand what the fuck I'm supposed to do. I don't even think that this game understands what the fuck it wants you to do. Because this game is fucking torture! So with that being said, fellas, sit back, relax, grab a snack, and watch my horrible, horrendous fucking plays as I make it through the first Kingdom Rush game. Our journey, just like any other, started in Southport, aka the first level of the game. Now, because this level is relatively easy, and as much as I'm ashamed to admit this, I only died to it a couple of times during the Iron and Heroic challenges, I decided that I would explain to you guys the rules of this challenge while the level is playing in the background. Now, the rules of the challenge aren't really anything crazy, but if I didn't explain them, there would probably be a couple of people screaming at me in the comments that I did something wrong, even though I didn't really. Obviously, the first rule is that I'm playing in veteran mode, the hardest difficulty in the game. The second rule is that I'm going to be completing every single level with 3 stars, which means that I'm going to try my best not to leak any lives, and if I do leak lives, I'm not going to be leaking more than 2. And the final rule, and the one that I was afraid that people would yell at me in the comments about if I didn't mention it, is that I want to play this game in order while I'm attempting this challenge, so to speak. This means that while I play the game, like the first level for example, I will complete the first level and its Iron and Heroic challenge before moving on to the second level. And when I'm on the second level, I will complete that level and its Iron and Heroic challenges before moving on to the third. And so on and so on. So I don't want to hear anyone in the comments telling me about how if I'm stuck in a level, I should just return to it later when I get more stars and more upgrades and whatnot. With that being said though, we easily complete level 1 with minimal issues. Moving on to level 2, the outskirts, we unlock level 2 towers, as well as some new enemies. But again, just like the last level, it isn't really that big of a challenge. We managed to easily beat the main stage of the game, and then for Iron and Heroic challenges, well, they were a little bit challenging. They weren't really like a huge issue or anything like that. So we mop up this level and we move on to level 3. It's also around this time that we start getting some achievements, and while most of them aren't that interesting, being in the category of build a certain amount of towers, or kill a certain amount of enemies, or call a certain amount of waves early, or move your soldiers around like 200 times, one of them is actually worth noting here. And the achievement that I want to take note of is ovinophobia. Now, when I was a wee lad, I always thought that ovinophobia meant the irrational fear of sheep because, well, ovin is the start of that word, and ovca means sheep in a lot of European languages. And to get the achievement, you have to tap a bunch of sheep until they explode. So, you know, it all kind of came together and made sense in my little kid head. Now, this YouTuber here, who I shamelessly stole this video idea from, said in their video that ovinophobia means the fear of commitment or marriage. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I went on about my day. And it isn't until like 10 minutes before this recording that I actually looked up the definition of the word in Google, and I don't know where this YouTuber got this fucking information from, but the actual definition of the word is an irrational fear of sheep. So my little child brain was right all along. Anyways, Rotasdale, for this crime against humanity and for spreading disinformation, you will be publicly executed on October 22nd, 2026. Anyways, side tangent aside, level 3 of the game is where things started getting a little bit dicey. The regular level wasn't too bad outside the fact that it's introduced ogres and shamans, which, when paired together, are a dastardly fucking combo, because one enemy, the ogre, is incredibly tanky and deals a lot of damage. It can take many hits to take down. And the other enemy, the shaman, if it gets paired up with an ogre, it will just heal the ogre endlessly. And the ogre and the shaman together will be able to absolutely trample your entire defense and just destroy all your hopes and dreams. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen to me, at least not on the main mode of the level. However, when it came time for the heroic challenge, it was quite a battle. I tried many different loadouts here, and many different positions, and many different placements, but what ended up working finally was putting all the ogres and all the enemies into this choke point right here, and just stalling them there in between 3 cannon towers, which were able to hit them all at the same time. And I had plenty of barracks, and I even used the feature. I'm not actually sure if it's a feature or a glitch, but I used the strategy, I guess, where if you upgrade your barracks tower while all the soldiers are dead, they will revive at their full HP and come out again without you needing to wait for them to respawn. Other than that, all I had to do was separate the shamans and the ogres in the very last wave, and after letting a bunch of ogres leak through while I was dealing with the shamans, I eventually microed my towers a little bit, put my soldiers in the front, and sold all the towers in the back that weren't attacking anymore to buy new towers at the front that could actually hit the ogres. And after we did that, we managed to win the level quite easily without really any clutch moments or anything like that. Using the same strategy from before with the whole upgrading your barracks at the right time thing and keeping the shamans away from the orcs and ogres, we also managed to beat the iron challenge of the stage quite easily as well. Oh, also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I managed to get an achievement that you're usually supposed to get on the level after this on level 3. And that achievement is Twin River Angler. The way that you're normally supposed to get it is you're supposed to play level 4, and when the little fish jumps out of the water on the river, you're supposed to click on it and you get the achievement. However, it's also possible to get that same achievement on Pigris, because if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you might notice this little body of water here. And if you catch a fish that jumps out of that body of water, you will also get the exact same Twin River Angler achievement, just a level earlier. Moving on to the actual Twin River Pass, this is where things really did get dicey. This is the first really hard level of the game. Again, the main campaign level wasn't really that hard. The actual regular normal level was all fine and dandy in my opinion. However, where the ass started to crack was on the heroic challenge, because on the one side of the lane you have ogres, which, as we discussed previously, are really tanky enemies that you really want to take care of. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have bandits and lightly armored enemies, so to speak, which are also a problem because bandits deal a fuck a load of damage, so they're pretty much impossible to stall. And the reason that that's a problem is because when they kill all of your ground troops, all of your soldiers that are meant to block the enemies coming down the path, a bunch of wolves will come out, which will also go on the same path that the bandits went down. And, well, because you don't have anything to block the said wolves with, they will just kind of run through your fucking defense and touch your booty hole a little bit. However, even though it took me a good few tries to get the heroic challenge down, the Iron Challenge was a whole different beast. This challenge is a spam challenge. On the one side of the level, you got a fuck ton of goblins coming through, and on the other side of the level, you got a fuck ton of wolves coming through. And while I'm not gonna pretend like the goblins were no trouble at all, it was mostly wolves that caused like 99% of my deaths. It took a lot of tinkering, a lot of placement changes, and a lot of different strategies to finally beat this level. But the strategy that worked out the best is beating the spam with even more spam, because placing archer towers pretty much all around the level, everywhere, wherever you can, is more or less the best way to beat this level, and it's the only way to beat this level that I found. But these little wolves put me through absolute hell. Now that I'm looking back at the recording, apparently it took me less time to beat the Iron Challenge than it took me to beat the Heroic Challenge. But let me tell you, the Iron Challenge felt 10 times fucking harder and 10 times more annoying. But thankfully, we finally somehow managed to get past that and we're moving on. On the next level, I finally get to use the hero that I unlocked in the previous level, and that hero's name is Sir Gerald Lightseeker. Heroes in Kingdom Rush games are all very important. They are these little units that you can micro wherever you want on the map, and you can send them and put them wherever the hell you want. But it's always useful to engage them in combat, because when they're in combat, they gain experience, and by gaining experience, they level up. And when they level up, their stats increase, but they also unlock new abilities that can be extremely helpful in a battle. For Sir Gerald Lightseeker, the two abilities that he unlocks are the Skeleton Shield Bang, which is kind of crazy, because if you think about it, Kingdom Rush kind of predicted the skeleton shield meme like 14 years before it became mainstream. This ability powers up all of the allies within its range, giving them more armor and more stats. It's pretty much just a straight buff to all the allies that are within Sir Gerald's range. And the second ability that Sir Gerald gets is the Deflect ability, where he can parry an attack, which means that the attack is completely negated, dealing 0 damage to him, but also the attack is reflected onto the enemy, dealing the damage to the enemy instead. Needless to say, Sir Gerald is a freaking goat, man, especially in this game, because Kingdom Rush 1 is known for having a crap ton of really tanky enemies. So Sir Gerald's whole tanking ability and him being able to just straight up ignore damage that other enemies are doing to him is just really invaluable. And in my opinion, he's one of the best heroes in this whole game. And the only thing that ruined it for me is actually Kingdom Rush Vengeance, because you all know what happens in that game. That game fucking slandered my goat. They just stuck him out back and they fucking shot him. Well, they shot his personality, honestly. I guess he did get shot too, but it's mostly his personality that got absolutely tarnished in Kingdom Rush Vengeance, and I will never forgive Ironhide for that. Unless Kingdom Rush Genesis fixes that issue, because from what I see in the trailers, a big focus of the game is going to be Sir Gerald Lightseeker, so who knows, maybe he recovers from the fraud allegations. Moving back to the level at hand, we actually managed to beat the Iron and Heroic challenges pretty easily on this one. Like, honestly, they weren't that much of a problem. I died maybe 1 or 2 times or something, but we managed to beat them pretty easily, and we also managed to get the achievement for getting a house full of elves on this map as well. The very next level is a boss level, and before we went into it, I decided to deploy a little strategy that I used when I was a wee lad playing this game. And that strategy was to completely forego upgrading any of my towers with the stars that we have collected so far. Instead, I would just dump all of my stars into the Meteor Shower ability and the Recruits ability. It's a strategy that served me very well when I was a wee lad, and well, it served me very well to this day too, so you know what? Little me was onto something with this one. This level, despite being a boss level, was actually pretty easy. The main strategy was just to spam wizard towers everywhere. And the reason for that is because this level likes to send out a lot of these Dark Knight enemies. And these Dark Knights, while having a really high resistance to physical attacks like cannons, have absolutely no resistance against magical attacks. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have gotten just level 3 wizard towers instead of full-on arcane wizards, and the reason that I say that is because on the last wave I was actually a little bit short in money, because as you can see in the back, outside of just spamming around wizard towers, I also placed down 2 archer towers in the back. And I did that because I was planning to upgrade these towers to ranger hideouts, because ranger hideouts have a really powerful ability where they can trap every enemy in their range in a bunch of vines, which not only stun lock these enemies for 3 whole seconds, but also deal a crap ton of damage, and they can completely eliminate swarms of smaller and weaker enemies. And the enemies that I intended these ranger hideouts for are the enemies that the Juggernaut himself sends out. He sends out a bunch of these little fellas over here that you're seeing on your screen that run around, and if you don't have anything to stall them, they will pretty much just run through your defense and completely destroy you. Now, because of my aforementioned money issues, I didn't have a lot of money to stop these enemies with, so I had to get down a couple of barracks and upgrade my ranger hideouts mid-wave, and it did not look pretty, but in the end we managed to take down the final boss, and it wasn't too difficult. It only took us 1 try, thankfully. And in the process of doing that, we actually got an achievement for saving these little guys that spawn on the map before the game even starts. If you save 3 of them and don't let them die, then you will get an achievement for doing so. It's actually kind of funny that I got that achievement first try, because as a kid, I remember really struggling to get it. And I really don't know why, because the achievement is really not that hard to get. In fact, it's pretty easy, but I don't know, little old me was not onto that one, okay? He was onto something with his meteor upgrades, but he was not onto something when it comes to getting that achievement. The heroic challenge of this level was also relatively easy. We more or less used the same strategy of getting a couple of ranger hideouts in case there were any enemies that were resistant to magic, and we spammed a whole lot of magic towers, because there were a lot of enemies that were resistant to physical attacks. However, this time around we had a lot more money to play with, so as you can see, we got a lot more mage towers this time around. The iron challenge was out to tickle my pickle though, because it was actually pretty difficult, and it was a really interesting challenge as well. In this challenge, you have 2 mage towers already pre-built on the level, but you yourself can only build barracks and nothing else. On my first attempt, I did what any sane person would do, and I maxed out my wizard towers and got down a couple of barracks. But when that failed, I realized that the secret of the level was actually to not upgrade the wizards at all, and instead just invest all of your money into stalling and blocking power. The reason for this is because the level 3 wizard actually attacks faster than the level 4 wizard, so it's a little bit better for dealing with crowds of enemies instead of just dealing single target damage. The arcane wizard really isn't that powerful without his abilities, although with his abilities he is very, very powerful, and we're gonna see that on some of the later levels. But for now, our strategy of ignoring the wizard worked like a charm, and we managed to get past the iron challenge as well. And now, we move on to the icy levels. Our first icy level is Cold Step Mines, and the whole gimmick with cold levels is that they have a lot of these troll guys. And trolls are these sometimes little, sometimes medium, and sometimes huge blue guys that can regenerate HP when you damage them. So if you aren't constantly on top of them, they can just completely regenerate any damage that you did to them and steamroll your defense. Now thankfully, in this level, we unlock a tower that will be a huge help. It's called the Musketeer Garrison, and it's such a huge help that I didn't use it at all in this level. Yeah, we just kind of spammed the Ranger hideouts and upgraded Divine's ability to kill all the wolves, and got a couple of mage towers, and that was about it. So yeah, anyways, moving on. In the heroic challenge, we almost win, but then we lose because I was dumb, and instead of upgrading my Vine's ability on my archer tower, I decided to get like 50 more low tier mages. So everything kind of leaked and we kind of died. But I'm not going to blame myself for that loss right there. And instead I'm going to blame this barracks tower, because why the hell did all the soldiers spawn on the complete opposite side of what I wanted? Anyways, on the second try, we actually got it pretty easily. So with that being said, we're moving on to the Iron Challenge. And on the Iron Challenge, for some reason, I get pretty insistent on trying to use the Musketeer Garrison instead of just spamming the Ranger hideouts, which is a strategy that worked for me up until now. But anyways, I guess the Musketeer Garrison strategy also works eventually, because after a couple of tries, we also managed to beat the Iron Challenge. Our second icy level is Icewind Pass, and for this one, I decided to bring along Mr. Bolin himself, because we just unlocked him on the previous level. I kind of just brought along Bolin Farslayer because I thought it would be funny, since he's one of the contenders for being the worst hero in the entire series, right up there with Illyria. It kind of sucks that he sucks, because he was actually one of the heroes that I really wanted as a kid. Because as a kid, I played a free mobile version of the game and a flash version, and on the mobile version, you actually have to pay for heroes. Well, for most of them. You get some of them for free, but you gotta pay for most of them. And I really wanted Bolin. His stats in the hero room looked insane. But it turns out they were a lie, and my entire life has been a lie, because he's secretly really fucking trash. But in this level, he did just fine, and we managed to beat the main campaign level pretty easily. And while we were beating it, we also unlocked the Sasquatch achievement, which is the achievement that you get for dropping a meteor shower on this little cave right here, and then hiring a Sasquatch to fight for you. After completing that, though, we moved on to the Iron Challenge. That's right, this time around we're doing the Iron Challenge before the Heroic one. And damn, it was actually pretty damn hard. The main problem with the Iron Challenge on this level is that there are a lot of flying enemies. On the top path, there's pretty much a constant stream of gargoyles coming out, but you don't really have a reliable way of dealing with them, because the archer towers and the mage towers are banned in this challenge. Instead, you only have one mage tower already pre-built at the top of the level. Now, my original idea was to upgrade that tower to the max and just hope that it can take out all the gargoyles, but of course that didn't really work. So what I did instead is I employed the good old strategy of just upgrading the tower to level 3 for its faster fire rate so that it can take out the gargoyles more easily. Now that still wasn't enough, so what I had to do in the end was get a couple of barbarian halls. Now barbarian halls are usually considered to be a really weak tower, and the main reason for that is because while they can do a shit ton of damage, they are really fragile, and a lot of enemies do a lot of damage in this game. And not only that, but if you do want the barbarians to do the shit ton of damage that they're capable of, you need to invest like all of your money into a single barbarian hut. However, in this specific level, they actually have a niche that they fill out really well, and that niche is being able to throw their axes to hit flying enemies. So all they had to do was just place down a couple of barbarian halls and upgrade their axe throwing skills to level 1, and they would be able to kill any flying enemies that leaked away from the mage towers. And as for the other enemies that came out of the bottom path on this level, they were just pretty much taken care of by the 2 cannon towers that we got and the other barbarian hall that we bought. And in the end, the level wasn't really that hard. I just kind of had to think outside the box a little bit and use a tower that usually I would not use anywhere else. Getting back to the heroic challenge, this shit was a fucking slog. It took me multiple hours just to beat this single heroic challenge. And the reason for that is because this challenge loves to spam enemies. If you're not overwhelmed by the first wave of the trolls coming in and running through your whole entire defense with their high damage, then you will be overrun by the matriarch spiders and the wolves that come out on the very next wave. And if you're not overwhelmed by the matriarch spiders and the wolves that come out on the next wave, then you'll be overwhelmed by the trolls that come out on the first wave. There is just no way around it. Either you die on the trolls that come out on the first wave, or you die to the matriarchs and wolves that come out on the second wave. There is just no in between. To finally beat this level, I had to get really creative with my barrack placements. Basically, what I ended up doing in my winning run was I placed a bomb tower in the middle of these three spots down here, and I placed a barracks tower on either side of that bomb tower. And the reason I did that is because this allowed my barracks to come to a single point, like congregate in a single point, where they would be able to block all the enemies that come down the path around a single tiny minuscule point that the bomb tower would be able to hit all at once. And by stalling all the enemies next to this bomb tower, I ended up finally managing to save up enough money to spam ranger hideouts with Irvine's ability, which allowed me to stall enemies even further, which then allowed me to finally beat the level. The next level is a boss level, and on this level we get a new tower to help us out, and that tower is the Sorcerer Mage. The Sorcerer Mage has two different abilities. The first one is Polymorph, which basically functions as an insta-kill, but instead of actually killing an enemy, it turns them into a sheep. Sheep cannot be blocked by regular units on the path, but they can be popped just like any other sheep if you click on them enough times. The other ability that the tower has is being able to summon an elemental golem, which is a really tanky ally unit that can spawn on the path and block any enemy that comes its way. Now, the Sorcerer Mage used to be my favorite tower as a kid. I would pretty much spam it everywhere and not play with any other tower at all, basically. And a part of the reason behind why I did that is because I really liked the golem animation when the golem dies and respawns. It's actually insanely highly detailed, and it fucking amazed me as a kid. I just can't imagine how much time the developers spent on this animation for this one singular unit, where he turns into like 1,000 pebbles, and then these hundreds and hundreds of pebbles just come together to slowly form the golem back up again when he respawns. It's just this insanely detailed animation that I have no idea why it exists in the game, but I'm really happy that it does, honestly. Anyways, I don't even know why I'm telling you all that about the Sorcerer's Tower, because I didn't even use it on this level. I just spammed a bunch of level 3 mage towers, and I used the little Sunray Tower on the left, which is that little platform with the pillar that you see. It's an already pre-built tower that you can upgrade if you want, and then you can fire it at the enemies every so often, and it does a pretty good chunk of damage, actually. It also has an achievement tied to it, which you get by firing the ray 20 times. But as I mentioned before, this level wasn't really that big of a challenge. In fact, it was pretty easy, again, just like the Juggernaut level, and as a matter of fact, that's actually the case with all of the main campaign levels. They're all probably the easiest 3 levels in the whole entire game. The Heroic and Iron challenges are done easily schmeasily as well. The fun part with them, at least, is that we got to use our Sorcerer Mages finally and plop down a couple of golems and whatnot, and yeah, it was pretty fun. Even though it was easy, it was pretty fun, and I enjoyed the break from all the hecticness that happened up until this point. The next level is our first fiery level, though, and it's absolutely insane. Not in terms of difficulty, it's actually really easy in terms of difficulty, but it's insane in terms of what we unlock on this level. Because first of all, we unlock the Tesla Tower, which is by far the most powerful tower in this entire game. It can hit flying enemies. It can hit ground enemies. It has splash damage. It has single target damage. It does a lot of damage. It's just an absolutely insane tower all around. Pretty much the only thing it doesn't have is an insta-kill. But if it had an insta-kill, then I mean, this game would just be way too easy. But this tower is really, really OP. That's all you need to know for now. And the other thing that we unlock in this level is a new hero, Mr. Ignis. Now, Ignis, just like the Tesla Tower, is fucking cracked, okay? He is not really good for tanking, he doesn't have a lot of HP, and he has no defense at all. And also, he jumps between enemies all on his own without you having to command him, so he can't really stall a singular enemy for a long period of time. However, outside of that, everything about him is just insane. He does an insane amount of damage with his fists. He has an ability where he spawns a little ring of fire on himself, which does splash damage and hits every enemy in the radius, and also heals him, by the way. The ring of fire ability heals him. And he has another ability where he automatically jumps between nearby enemies that are close to the original enemy that he's fighting. And when he does that, he also does an insane amount of damage. With those two insane unlocks, it should be absolutely no surprise that we managed to completely demolish this level. We managed to beat both the main stage of the game, the iron stage of the game, and the heroic stage of the game with absolutely zero difficulties. Next up, we got the Forsaken Valley, and this is a level that I really used to struggle on as a kid, and I had to get my uncle to beat it for me because as I mentioned before, as a kid, I only used to spam sorcerer mages and I didn't use Tesla coils at all. And this level pretty much requires you to use Tesla coils if you want to beat it, because of how many enemies it spams and how many necromancers there are. But because I'm older and wiser these days, I activated 100% of my brain power and spammed Teslas absolutely everywhere. And they absolutely murdered everything in their path, including those necromancers and their little skeleton armies that they spawn. The only trouble was that this level introduces Vesnan's own version of the sorcerer's elemental golems. However, they weren't really all that hard, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they're tanky, don't get me wrong, and they do a lot of damage, and you can't really stall them. But they also have no defense, and the Teslas just kind of melt them into dust, like, in like 20 seconds maybe. So they really weren't all that big of a deal. Speaking of no big deal, the Iron and Heroic challenges were pretty easy as well. I mean, on the Heroic challenge, I just spammed down a bunch of Teslas as always. But on the Iron challenge, I just spammed a bunch of mages and a couple of barracks, and that was pretty much it. There really wasn't any issue whatsoever with this level. And now, finally, we reach the final level. The final boss fight against Vesnan himself, the main villain of the game. And he has a couple of cool tricks up his sleeve, like actually being present during the entire level and trash-talking you a bunch. And he also has these little demon pentagon circle thingies on the ground that he can activate periodically and spawn a bunch of enemies out of. And he can also use his big black staff to lock up your towers and disable them temporarily. But you have an option to click on your towers before that temporary disable thing happens and hopefully free your towers before they get stunned. This is actually a thing that's a lot easier to do on mobile than it is to do on the computer, because, well, when you're playing on mobile, you have multiple different fingers that you can tap your towers with. Meanwhile, on the computer, you only have a single cursor. But still, even on the computer, this fight really isn't that difficult. It follows the trend of all the other boss fights in the main campaign of Kingdom Rush 1, where they're just really fucking easy and pretty much no challenge at all. It is kind of cool though that his boss fight consists of 2 different stages instead of just one like all the other bosses, where at first he's just a little guy with a staff and then later on he transforms into a demon. But again, spamming a whole lot of Teslas everywhere just kinda brutally murders him and turns his corpse into ash. So yeah, that's kind of what we did. We just spammed a whole lot of Teslas and upgraded the overcharge ability, and we won. There really isn't much to say other than that. The heroic challenge of this level is also really easy because, well, you can just spam Teslas again and beat the level with the exact same quote-unquote strategy that you beat the original mode with. However, the Iron Challenge is a little bit more difficult and requires you to use your brain just a little bit because it actually bans Tesla towers. But again, it's not too hard because you can just spam a bunch of mages instead of Tesla Towers, and, maybe an occasional Ranger's hideouts for Divine's ability and whatnot. Now, to be fair, I was a little bit dumb in this level because I tried to get poison arrows to poison the skeletons, and I kind of completely forgot that skeletons can be poisoned, but outside of that, we managed to beat the Iron Challenge of the final level pretty easily as well. And that does it for the main campaign. However, we're not nearly out of the woods with this game, because now we have unlocked a million different little elite stages, which are basically mini campaigns that are kind of an extension of the main campaign, but they're just a million times harder, let's just say. Anyways, sorry if I kinda rushed through the main campaign. Alright gang, cut it out. The joke was not that funny. But anyways, the reason that I skimmed through so many levels in the main campaign is because even though they're all really iconic and really fun, there's only so many things that I can talk about with them, because most of them were pretty easy, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, there were still some challenges in there that were really hard and really gave me a run for my money, like the Twin River Pass Iron and Heroic challenges, for example. But, I mean, there were only like maybe 4 or so levels total that I really struggled with, and then the rest of them were pretty easy. So there was only so much that I could say for each level, so my apologies if I kind of just sped through them. However, the elite stages that we're about to get to are going to be a lot more interesting, and they're going to require a lot more strategizing and a lot more explanations. And honestly, the mini campaign that I think is the hardest in this whole entire game is probably the Lord Blackburn Castle campaign, which is this one in the top right of your screen. It is actually the one mini campaign that I've never ever in my entire life up until this point managed to beat on veteran mode entirely. And honestly, I was gonna save it for one big final showdown and a really climactic ending of me completing that mini campaign as a finale to this video. But honestly, ain't nobody gonna wait for all of that, and I need my revenge right now. So you know what? Let's just hop right in. The first level waiting for us is Rodwick, and it's basically just what an average day in Birmingham looks like. There are a bunch of cracked up houses everywhere. There's not a single blade of grass growing. The skies are all gray. There's no greenery. There are a bunch of mutated rats everywhere, and just to top it all off, there's a couple of puddles of puke, shit, and piss all over the ground. In this level, we can click this little sewer gate to get an achievement, which is a reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As for the level itself, though, it's actually quite easy. We just spam down a bunch of Teslas, with the first one that we place being placed right here in this location. And that might seem like a weird location at first, because, as you may or may not have noticed, there are 4 tracks that enemies come out of, and that Tesla only covers 3 of them. But the reason I did that is because that Tesla is single-handedly able to take care of all 3 of those tracks, while the one exposed one is just gonna get absolutely mauled by Ignis. Other than that, we just get a couple of mage towers in case they're needed for all those lightly armored skeletons, and we just keep spamming more and more Teslas over time. The one thing you might be surprised by in this level is that I actually got the Barbarian Hall for the first time in a while, which might be a surprise considering the fact that I trash talked it a couple of levels back. But in reality, in this level, it's actually kinda sorta useful, because this level introduces brand new enemies to the game, called were-rats and giant rats, and they both poison whatever unit is blocking them, and poison completely ignores armor. So this is actually the only mini-campaign where the paladins might actually be weaker than the Barbarian Hall. After beating the main stage, we also beat the heroic stage really easily, with pretty much the exact same strat. We just kind of spam Teslas everywhere. However, the Iron Challenge is where the pickle starts to tickle. And the reason for that is because cannons are completely banned on this stage, which means you have to come up with some other solution to deal with the absolute horde of enemies that's coming towards you. The strategy that ended up working was the one where I actually defended the top lane with actual towers, and then on the bottom lane, I just kind of let Ignis do his thing. And in the meantime, I saved for a couple of mage towers that I put at the front of the level, and the hope with them is that they'll catch any of the lightly armored enemies that pass through. through. And well, after an extremely close call, that's exactly what happened. We managed to beat the level. The next level, though, Ancient Necropolis, was actually pretty difficult because it introduced Fallen Knights and Spectral Knights. These enemies are spammed all throughout this campaign, and they're really tanky. And the thing that makes them really messed up, though, is the fact that when a Fallen Knight dies, he actually becomes a Spectral Knight. So every Fallen Knight that comes out, you actually have to kill twice. But that's actually not where the troubles with them end, because when a Fallen Knight dies and turns into a Spectral Knight, not only does he buff all other Fallen Knights within his range, but his defense completely flips. So in his normal form, when he's alive, when he's a Fallen Knight, he has a high resistance to magic damage. But when he becomes a Spectral Knight, he's immune to physical damage. It does 0 damage to him. Any bomb that drops on him, any arrow that drops on him, it all does 0 damage. And can I just say, by the way, that in my mind, that's a really backwards logic. Because you're telling me that a Fallen Knight, with all his armor kitted out from head to toe, is immune to magic damage, and bombs and arrows can just easily kill him? And then you're telling me that when he dies and becomes a magical ghost, he can be easily killed with magic? And it's the physical attacks that do nothing to him? I mean, to me that's always just been really weird logic, but you know what? Whatever, man. Anyways, this level is pretty messed up because the only 2 major checkpoints are at the very back of the level, so it always looks like you're just about to leak like fucking 50 lives and completely lose the entire game, but you just never do. Well, if your defense is good enough, at least you never do. And, well, it turns out my defense was good enough, because even though I had a lot of clutch moments in this level, I managed to beat it in the end, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. The only thing that changed from the previous level was that I also had to put down a lot of mages alongside all of my Tesla coils. And the reason for that is not only because the Spectral Knights, which are immune to physical damage, but also the Abominations, which needed a lot of single target damage to take them down. The Heroic Challenge was where things got a bit harder. It wasn't too terrible or anything like that, but it did take me a good few tries to beat this level. My first instinct was to do what I've always done, which is spam Teslas everywhere. And unfortunately, that didn't work. So my second instinct was just to place a Tesla on this spot right here and hope that it can hit both of the lanes consistently, which it can, but unfortunately it wasn't quite enough to beat the level. So then I decided to try some of the more wackier strategies, like putting a Ranger's hideout in that spot where the Tesla was in the previous attempts. And the reason I did that is because I was hoping that maybe somehow the Vine's ability in the Ranger's hideout can like kill all the wolves, and then maybe the Ranger's hideout itself can like kill the Abominations, and maybe the Fallen Knights that appear. But then that didn't work either. The main problem was that there were a lot of strong enemies that came out on this level, and we didn't have a lot of money. We only had enough money to place down 1 maxed out tower, when in reality we needed like at least 2 in order to beat all of the enemies that were coming out, because they all had different types of resistances, like the Spectral Knights, which had the resistance to normal attacks, and then the Wolves, which had a resistance to magical attacks, and then the Fallen Knights, which had also a resistance to magical attacks. And yeah, it was a whole ordeal. Anyways, the solution that worked in the end was one of the ones that I tried to do at first, which is the one where I placed the Tesla tower right here in this spot, where it can hit both of the lanes at the same time. However, what I had to do also was reinforce that position with a bunch of barracks that are going to be stopping enemies and stalling them next to that Tesla tower so that it can take them all out. And it worked like a charm. It managed to kill the Abominations, it managed to kill the Wolves, and it even managed to kill the Necromancers. And as for the bottom lane, I just pretty much had Ignis take care of that, because surprisingly, he's actually really good at killing those Spectral Knight fellas. So I just kind of had him do his thing. I mean, in the end, I did end up getting a couple of magic towers down there to just help him out a little bit, but not before I got another Tesla tower in the top lane to take care of all the wolves and abominations and necromancers. The iron challenge, funnily enough, wasn't an issue at all. I managed to beat it first try. I just kinda put down a couple of Teslas and had Ignis take care of the Spectral Knights, and that was pretty much it. So, yeah, anyways, we beat the level and we're moving on to Nightfang Swale. And spoiler alert about Nightfang Swale, it was the hardest level that I've ever played in the entire Kingdom Rush series. So I just want you all to brace for this shit, alright? Of the level was actually pretty easy. It introduced a few new enemies like the werewolf, which is just a strong guy that's fast and has regeneration. It also introduced the Lycan, which is an enemy that starts off as a regular guy but then transforms into a terrible beast if you kill him, and then he becomes really fast and really tanky, and he can also lifesteal, and he's pretty strong, okay? That's the point I'm trying to get across. He's pretty strong. And then the last enemy that the level introduces is the Black Hag. The Black Hag is a flying enemy that can insta-kill any ground troop. Now, because of that, you might think that ground troops are absolutely useless against her, because, well, not only can she fly over them, but she also insta-kills them. But actually, it's still really useful to have a couple of barracks down, because she uses her insta-kill ability often. And when she uses it, she has to stop dead in her tracks for like a solid 2 seconds to cast her ability before she continues on down the lane. So despite being a flying enemy that also insta-kills ground troops are still useful for stalling her, which is just amazing. What can I say? After spamming a couple of paladins down and a bunch of Tesla coils, we beat the normal level though. And then we moved on to the heroic stage. And the heroic stage really wasn't that much different. We still just put down a couple of Tesla coils, a couple of barracks, and well, they just kind of took care of everything. They just absolutely murdered everyone in their track, and we ended up winning. But then we have the iron stage. The iron stage of this level took me 4 hours to beat. 4 whole hours, and I'm pretty sure I had to spread those attempts over the course of like 2 days or something. It was absolutely insane. I was playing this singular challenge. Not even the singular level, but this singular challenge for 4 fucking hours. Nightfang Swale Iron is by far the hardest iron challenge in this whole entire game. Nothing even comes close. Not Pagris, not the Twin River Pass challenge, not any of the ice challenges, and certainly not any of the late main stage campaign challenges. What you're seeing on your screen right now is a time lapse of a lot of attempts that I did in this level. It's not even all of the attempts that I did, and it's certainly not the majority of the attempts I did, but it is a lot of the attempts I did. And you can just see how far off I was from beating this challenge in any of these attempts. The first time I ever beat this stage as a kid, I actually had to do it in casual. And not only that, but I had to follow a Super John Bombo guide from like 11 years ago. And when I tried out that exact same guide today, it did not work at all. I really have no idea how the fuck Super John Bombo did it, unless he was like super secretly playing on like casual difficulty instead of veteran difficulty. But, well, either he did that, or he's just insanely fucking cracked at the game and none of us know it. Because this guy, not only did he beat the stage, not only did he pretend like it was no challenge at all and he beat it super easily, but he didn't even have to use the meteor shower whatsoever. Listen guys, I have no fucking idea how that's even possible. I really don't. In the end, I had to discover a super secret strategy that I had no idea even existed in this game, And that strategy was that when you place down a golem from a sorcerer mage, if you upgrade that golem, it will heal back to its maximum HP within an instant. Now, this is probably a trick that everyone who played Kingdom Rush knows, but the reason that I didn't know it is because I thought that this trick only applies to soldiers, like the ones that you spawn out of barracks. And the reason that I thought it only applies to them and not golems is because when you upgrade your soldiers, they respawn immediately, even if they're dead. They both heal if they're alive, and they respawn if they're dead. However, with golems, they only heal. If you upgrade them while they're dead, they're still gonna be dead, and you're gonna have to wait for them to respawn. And this is the reason that I thought that this trick just didn't work at all with golems. But it turns out it does, and it's actually like the key thing that you need to do, the key strategy that you need to use in order to beat the level. I actually used Hacksaw as my hero in this level, and the reason for that is because he has an insta-kill ability. Now, the problem with insta-kill abilities is that most of them, except for the Arcane Wizard, don't work on enemies like Lycans. Because the problem with Lycans is that they have two forms, as we discussed before. They have a human form, and when you kill the human form, a wolf form comes out. But the problem with insta-kills is if they're used on the Lycan while it's in its human form, then it will just kill the human form. And the wolf form, the transformed form of Lycan, will not be affected whatsoever. It will just continue running down your defenses as if nothing happened, as if you just killed the human form of the Lycan naturally. Only the Arcane Wizards can bypass this, but the problem with Arcane Wizards is that if you use them, then you have no stalling, like what you have with the Sorcerer Mage. And the reason that that's a problem is because the Arcane Wizard can only get off an insta-kill every 20 seconds, which is not nearly fast enough to kill all Lycans, especially in this level where you can only build like 4 max towers at once. And the worst part about this level is that using the Sorcerer Mage is really the only way to stall Lycans in this wave, because the barracks and the archers are completely banned in this level. Although I suppose the barrack ban kind of makes sense, because if you had barracks you could just spam paladins and they would just completely diddle the Lycans. I just really cannot put into perspective how painful this level was and how much I didn't like it. I mean, listen, I'm all up for a challenge, and I like really challenging games. Like, I play Factoria, I play Lobotomy Corporation, right? I play a bunch of different challenging games. But it just gets to a point where it's just straight up unfair, right? And this level was definitely unfair. It felt like I was relying on luck quite a lot, you know. I was relying on luck for my allies and my towers to hit the maximum amount of damage. I was relying on luck to place my troops and my reinforcements on the exact right pixel where they're supposed to go. I was relying on luck for my hero to use his insta-kill ability on the right enemies and not completely waste it on a random wolf. And it was just awful. It was just terrible, guys. But after 4 grueling hours of attempts, we managed to beat the level, and we're moving the fuck on. Now, Lord Blackburn's castle is the final level of this mini-campaign, and it's the one that really, really worried me, because it's really difficult, and I remember struggling with it a ton as a kid. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I never even managed to beat it as a kid. I didn't beat it until I was like a teen. And even then, I could only do it in casual mode. It really speaks volumes as to how hard this level was when the most popular video on Super John Bombo's entire 3rd channel is a guide on how to beat Lord Blackburn's castle. But surprisingly, I actually managed to beat the normal stage quite easily. It did take me a couple of attempts to nail down the early game, but once I did, everything else was pretty easy. There were a couple of clutch moments here and there, but overall, it wasn't really that bad. And I'm saying this even though the final boss fight did get pretty close and it did scare me a little bit. I guess that Iron Challenge and Nightfang's Whale really prepared me for all the bullshit that I would face in this level, and I just didn't fucking care, and it ended up being actually pretty easy. Editor Exo here, I forgot to mention this, but after we beat this mini-campaign, we got the achievement called Game of Crowns. And can I just say, by the way, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but from what I've heard from people, it was like the worst fucking series ending that has ever existed on planet Earth. Like, everyone likes to dunk on Stranger Things, for example, for having a really mediocre and bad ending that didn't tie up like any of the loose ends. But dude, when it comes to Game of Thrones, people actually underwent surgeries to remove their Game of Thrones tattoos after the show ended because of how fucking bad it was. Like, that is just, fumbling that bad is just fucking unfathomable to me. Now, in all fairness, the heroic challenge was pretty hard in this level as well. It wasn't nearly as hard as Night Fang's Whale, don't get me wrong, but it was pretty difficult, and it took some tinkering to figure out the exact locations for all of my units. The main problem was the fact that on the top 2 lanes there were a bunch of Spectral Knights and Fallen Knights coming through, so I needed a lot of towers to take care of them. Both physical damage dealing towers and magical towers. Although on most of my attempts I invested more money into magical towers than physical because I just kind of had my hero Ignis take care of the Fallen Knights. However, even when I eventually finally managed to beat all the Fallen Knights and the Spectral Knights, there were a bunch of Lycans that came out of the bottom lane, and they completely ran through my defense. Yeah, it was all a little bit too familiar to Night Fang's Whale, but it wasn't nearly as difficult. As I mentioned before, Night Fang's Whale put me through so much that this seemed like a baby's game now. And after a few attempts, we actually managed to beat the heroic challenge. And yippee, it wasn't really that difficult. You just kind of need to have a good mix of everything. A good mix of magic towers, physical towers, and you need to pay attention to both the top and bottom lanes so that no Lycans get you. The Iron Challenge, on the other hand, was pretty easy. You pretty much only had the Mage Towers, so, you know, I just found a bunch of level 3 Mage Towers everywhere. And you also had one pre-built Mage Tower, which was equipped with its little sheep transformation insta-kill ability, and that on its own pretty much took care of all the black hags that were coming out. The sorcerer would transform the black hags into flying sheep, and I would just tap away at them until they exploded. And yeah, that was pretty much it. There isn't really a lot of strategy to talk about here, because again, all I did was just spam mages everywhere. But yeah, it was a fun little game mode, I guess, and we managed to beat it pretty easily, which, you know what, I'm happy to end this whole Lord Blackburn mini-campaign on a positive note, and on an easy note as well, because this one really put me through hell and back. After all of that was said and done, though, I just kind of had to sit back and admire my map for a little bit, because as I mentioned before, this is something I've never done before. I've never managed to complete this entire mini-campaign with its Iron and Heroic challenges on Veteran before in my entire life. After admiring time was over, though, we moved on to the Rotten Forest, and the Rotten Forest introduced a bunch of new enemies to the game. The main ones being the Husks, which are just little fodder enemies that just spawn a bunch, and they're pretty easy to kill. They don't really have any defining traits or a lot of HP or anything like that. But the one funny thing about them is that they actually have a pretty hilarious portrait, because when I was a kid, I always thought that this was their face, right? I always thought that they were making like a saggy little derpy like fucking pea shooter expression all the time. Although I'm pretty sure that that's just like a random muck that's like stuck to their face between their chin and their chest. Another new enemy on this level is the Noxious Creeper, and it's basically just a spider matriarch but a lot stronger. It has a lot more HP and does more damage, and its babies are a little bit tougher to deal with. There's also the Swamp Things, which are big bad fellas that do a lot of damage, look big and strong, and are big and strong. They have a ton of HP, a ranged attack that pretty much kills everything except for the strongest of units, and surprisingly, they actually don't have a lot of defense, which means that while it's advised to insta-kill them, obviously, you don't really have to. You know, you can just spam down a bunch of Tesla coils and maybe a couple of wizards, and you'll be able to take them down without needing any insta-kills or anything. And lastly, the final and most important enemy of the level is the Tainted Tree Ants. These guys are spammed everywhere and anywhere, and they're relatively tanky, and they have pretty high armor. Outside of this, the level also has a lot of demon enemies because of that one demon portal that you're seeing on the right of the screen. And they really aren't that big of a deal, honestly. They weren't that big of a deal on the main campaign, and they aren't that big of a deal right now. Even with all of these new and old enemies, we do manage to beat the stage pretty easily, and that also goes for its Iron and Heroic challenges. The only really clutch moment in the game was at the boss fight, because I took one good look at the boss and I was like, damn, this guy is actually pretty weak. But then he started spawning tainted tree ants all over the level, and it got really close. I'm not gonna lie, it did get pretty close, but we did manage to beat him, and we did manage to take down all his little tainted tree ants, and that earned us the Lumberjack badge. As for the heroic stage, we beat it first try, as I mentioned before. We just spammed down a bunch of Teslas, and then that was it. We just did what we know best. On the Iron stage, though, we just spammed a bunch of arcane wizards and a couple of barracks, and we used the arcane wizard's insta-kill ability to kill all the swamp things, and that was pretty much it as well. We beat that first try too, and yeah, we're moving on to the next level. The fungal forest was a bit more messed up though. I did lose a couple of times in the main stage of the level, sometimes just to my own stupidity, and sometimes to even more my stupidity. Like in this attempt right here, for example, where the final boss came out and I killed him, and I totally forgot that after he dies, he just shits out a bunch of little mushroom minions to come and get you. It's alright though, because eventually I stopped being stupid and I got an achievement for letting the elves on the map do a certain amount of damage to the enemies, and I made it through all of the regular waves on the stage, and I finally made it to the boss again. And this time I remember that he was gonna shit out a bunch of rot shrooms upon death, so I got a bunch of Teslas in advance and I let Ignis do his thing, and they really weren't that big of a problem. What was a problem though was the heroic stage, because in this stage you're completely money starved. You do not have enough money to deal with a bunch of tanky enemies. And what does the game send out on the very first wave of the heroic challenge? That's right, a bunch of tanky enemies. Now, my original strategy was to try to eliminate all the swamp things on the left and all the noxious creepers with an arcane wizard. Now, while the arcane wizard's insta-kill worked just fine for a little while, eventually we got overwhelmed in the middle and right lanes, and the arcane wizard just couldn't reach any of the enemies that were leaking through, and we ended up losing, unfortunately. After trying out the wizard strategy a couple more times, I switched to the archer strategy, where I got a musketeer garrison set to a wizard, because even though the musketeer garrison's insta-kill is a lot less consistent, only working about 60% of the time, and dealing massive damage other 40% of the time, the musketeer garrison can pull off its insta-kill a lot more often and has a better range, so it might help us catch some leaking enemies that come from the right and middle. After a lot of tinkering with this strategy, I decided that the best thing to do was get a musketeer garrison for all the reasons I just explained, and also get a ranger's hideout with Divine's ability to trap any of the leaking enemies that could potentially be going through. And just like that, we finally managed to beat the heroic stage, and then we moved on to the iron stage, which was actually really easy. We just put a bunch of mages down, maxed out all these elf huts down at the bottom, and we won. And that was pretty much it. It's actually really funny how on 99% of the levels, you either only struggle with the heroic challenge or only struggle with the iron challenge, but almost never both. After that level, we got the super mushroom achievement for beating the final boss of the main stage of the level, and we also got the spore achievement for killing a bunch of mushrooms before they could poison anyone. The next mini-campaign that I decided to take on was the Glacial Heights mini-campaign, which is my favorite one in this game. This mini-campaign puts an emphasis on trolls. It is all about them. They have big trolls, they have small trolls, they have medium trolls, they have a bunch of different types of trolls, and they all regenerate a shit ton of HP very, very quickly. My favorite type of troll though in this mini-campaign is the Troll Breaker, because if you haven't been using insta-kills up to this point in the game, the Troll Breaker is gonna teach you the importance of them the hard way. Troll Breakers, outside of having a shit ton of HP taken away a shit shit ton of lives and having a shit ton of armor also deal a shit ton of damage. In fact, they deal so much damage that they deal the most damage out of any enemy in the whole entire game, except for bosses, of course. On top of all of this, these guys are sent out pretty often. They appear all across both level 1 and level 2 of this mini-campaign. So yeah, all that is to say that these guys are pretty much made to be insta-killed. In the main stage of the first level of this mini-campaign, we managed to get a couple of achievements. The first one being this one for fucking murdering this squirrel over here, and the second one being for killing a certain amount of these trolls while they're still on the ice. And after choking horrendously on the last wave of this stage, we managed to beat it too on the second try. The heroic stage of this challenge was actually a bit harder. There were a lot more troll breakers, and all the other miniature trolls like the skating ones and whatnot just got spammed all throughout the level. So in order to beat this level, we needed a ton of insta-kills for the troll breakers, and we also needed a bit of splash damage for everything else. And even though this stage was hard, I'd be absolutely lying if I said it wasn't satisfying as hell to finally beat it. I mean, in my opinion, there are very few things in this game that are more satisfying than seeing the Musketeer garrison just get headshot after headshot after headshot, just killing the strongest of the enemies in the game over and over again. Now, while the heroic stage of this level wasn't too complicated, the iron stage was pretty damn difficult. And the main reason for that is because insta-kills in this level are completely banned, which thankfully means that the game doesn't spam as many troll breakers, but it still does send out quite a few troll breakers. Now, because the game doesn't allow you to use any insta-killing towers, there are only really two ways to deal with all the troll breakers that get sent your way. The first way is to use Sir Gerald Lightseeker and hope that he uses his abilities to strengthen all your tanking units. And you also gotta hope that he uses his shield reflect parry ability enough so that he deflects the troll breaker's huge amount of damage back onto them. And the second way, and my favorite way of dealing with the troll breakers in this iron stage, is to use Hacksaw, because he's the only hero in the entire game that has an insta-kill ability. You remember how I said that there aren't a lot of things that are more satisfying in this game than seeing Musketeer garrisons insta-kill one enemy after another? Well, one of the things that actually is more satisfying than that is seeing Hacksaw using his insta-kill ability on a troll breaker. Thanks to Hacksaw, dealing with troll breakers was actually the easiest part of this whole challenge here. The hardest part of this challenge was dealing with the hordes of trolls that come out at the very start of the level, but thankfully Tesla helped us out with that. Now, it still took me a really long time to get past the early game of this level, because in order to do that, you actually have to upgrade your Tesla to the max. You both have to upgrade the overcharge ability and the lightning chain ability, which lets the Tesla hit more enemies at once. Now, Tesla hitting more enemies at once with its main lightning attack is usually kind of a useless upgrade to have on your Tesla, which is why most people only get the overcharge ability and completely ignore the lightning chain ability. But in this level, there were just so many trolls and so many enemies being spammed that you needed both of the upgrades at the same time. Once I figured that out, however, this level went down pretty easily. Beating that level led us straight to Hakraj Plateau, which was basically more of the same. A lot of sledding trolls, a lot of troll breakers, a lot of troll chieftains, a lot of troll enemies, and a lot of wolves as well. On this level, we got an achievement for finding and popping 5 different ice shrooms from Plants vs. Zombies. The main strategy we used in this level was setting up a choke point to block the Pathfinders, while also setting up a bunch of Musketeer garrisons and Arcane Wizards to insta-kill pretty much all of the strong trolls, including Troll Champions, Troll Chieftains, and of course, the ever-so-deadly Troll Breakers. We also got plenty of Teslas to kill all the weaker enemies, like all the wolves that were coming our way, and all the little trolls, and that was pretty much it. On the last wave, we faced against Olguk High, which is actually a pretty interesting boss, because it's one of the only bosses in this whole entire game that's actually designed to be blocked. he usually has his shield up, and while he has his shield up, he's immune to all damage. But when he has to fight an enemy that you place in front of him, like the barrack units, or your hero, or your reinforcements, he has to put his shield down, and only then is he vulnerable to damage. And honestly, while this gimmick is really cool, I think it's really poorly communicated. I wish that maybe there was like some blue force field that flashed around him when you lifted up his shield and he was like hit by an attack. And then when he had his shield down, the force field just disappeared. I think that would probably make it a little bit more clear that his shield is not just cosmetic and it actually does something and it actually blocks attacks. But either way, we managed to beat him first try, and it was a pretty cool boss, I gotta say. In the heroic challenge though, we just spammed a bunch of musketeer garrisons and used hacksaw to insta-kill all the strong enemies. And then we got a bunch of Teslas for everything else, and that was the end of that. And the Iron Challenge was also pretty easy. I thought it was going to be hard because they banned barracks, which was my main way of like stalling the troll pathfinders, little sledding guys that sled on ice. But it actually wasn't that difficult. All we had to do instead of placing down barracks was just spam ranger hideouts with Divine's ability, and that also stalled him just fine. And that was the end of that. After that mini campaign, we went straight to Hell, and Hell is probably the most intricate mini campaign in this whole entire game, because it introduces a shit ton of new enemies that you have to deal with. There are Whalemons, which fly over any unit that's trying to block them, and they're extremely tanky and pretty much designed to be insta-killed. There are Cerberuses, which are the only enemy in the whole entire game that aren't bosses that cannot be insta-killed at all. There are also Flareons, which just spit fire at anything that's in front of them and absolutely murder any soldier that's in their path. And then there are Demon Legions, which can duplicate themselves pretty much endlessly and completely overrun you if you aren't babysitting them constantly. Although thankfully, all their clones that they spawn are at their current HP levels. For example, if you have a Demon Legion guy, and you already got him down to half HP, when he clones himself, his clone will also be at half HP. Even with all of these new enemies, this level actually wasn't that hard. With a good mix of both physical and magical towers, and of course a bunch of Teslas, and a good amount of insta-kills, we managed to beat the level. The heroic stage of the level wasn't that hard either. The strategy remained pretty much the same, although I am kind of ashamed to admit that I did die once to the heroic challenge because I completely neglected the fact that a Cerberus would be spawning on the right lane, and I didn't have enough defenses, and I tried to clutch it, and I was pretty close to clutching it and managing to kill him right at the exit. But unfortunately, I just couldn't do that, and I ended up dying. After that, though, we managed to beat it on the second try, easy peasy lemon squeezy. The Iron stage was quite easy, though. We had Ignis deal with the Demon Legions, while I spammed down a bunch of Teslas to deal with the initial spam of Demon spawns. And then after that, I just got an insta-kill tower, which is the Musketeer Garrison as always, and they managed to mop up the Guilmons quite easily. However, things weren't gonna stay easy forever, because the very next level we had to take on was Pandemonium. And some say that Pandemonium is the hardest level in the entirety of Kingdom Rush 1. I mean, for God's sake, the second most viewed video on the entirety of Super John Bomba's third channel was a video on how to complete Pandemonium with 3 stars. So you know that this level was gonna be challenging. It was gonna be hard. Hell, it might even be impossible. We will have to pull out all the stops if we want to beat this. Never mind then. I guess it was actually quite easy. Yeah, so just like Olga, Kai, and the Don't Feed the Trolls achievement, this boss fight against the Moloch was also quite easy. A couple of Tesla coils and a Ranger hideout with Divine's ability pretty much took care of all the weaker enemies. And then we just had Paladins at the end to catch anything that could potentially leak, like maybe a Cerberus or something. And then we had a couple of insta-kills and a few mages for single target damage. And yeah, we just honestly put down quite a big mix of towers. And with their powers combined with the power of friendship, we managed to beat this level quite easily, actually. And speaking of easy, the heroic challenge was also pretty simple to beat. We did that a couple of times, but eventually we landed on just the right mix of insta-kills, magic defense, and physical towers. And we managed to beat the heroic challenge of this level pretty nicely too, I guess. The Iron Challenge was a different kind of beast though. The main problem was that the level spammed a bunch of weak enemies and also sent out a lot of Cerberuses. The thing with Cerberuses, actually, let's start with those since those are easy to explain. The thing with Cerberuses is that this level would send out a Cerberus, and just as you were able to defeat that first Cerberus, another one would come out. And then just as you were able to defeat that second one, the third one would come out. And then a fourth one, and a fifth one, and so on until the level ended. The main problem with the level though is the fact that all demonic enemies explode upon death, and this level liked to spam a lot of low level demonic enemies that would just interfere with your defenses. The level spams a bunch of demon spawns and flare-ons which run down the track to where your golems from your sorcerer mages are duking it out with the Cerberuses, and then they go down there and they get killed and they explode and they weaken your golems and make it easier for the Cerberuses to kill your golems and just run through your defense. So the strategy was to put down a couple of ranger hideouts near the beginning of the left and right lane, and these ranger hideouts would be placed in the optimal spot to cover most of the track, so that they can grab the most amount of demon spawns with their Vine's ability. And then the Vine's ability would either kill the demon spawns or get them pretty close to being killed, at which point the main archer tower itself could just take them out pretty easily. And without any pesky little demons to interfere with my Cerberus skilling, we managed to beat this challenge quite easily. And this level was actually pretty fun, honestly. It had its ups, it had its downs, it had its challenges, it had its whatever the opposite word of challenging is. And overall, it was a really fun level. What can I say? It was a nice little mini campaign. Those were all of the hardest levels in this game, and with them finally being done, we are out of the woods. We can sit back, relax, and chill a little bit as we finally finish Kingdom Rush 1. We're gonna start the final leg of the journey in Saralgaz's lair. This level is a snowy one, and while there are all sorts of snowy enemies here like Dark Slayers, Necromancers, Trolls, Bandits, Brigands, and all those little guys, the main focus of this level is big bad spiders, Matrix, giant spiders, Son of Saralgaz's, and of course the Spider Queen herself, Saralgaz. The main challenge of this level is the Son of Saralgaz enemies, because they are these big bad spiders that have plenty of HP, but they also have a high magic defense and a high physical defense, so neither of the damage types really do anything to them. Although, even with all that being said, Tesla spam kinda cleared them. So yeah, that's basically what we did. We just spammed a whole bunch of Teslas on this level, and they kind of flattened all the spiders. What can I say? Yeah, it was pretty easy. Same thing goes for the heroic stage. We just spammed down a bunch of Teslas and we took down all the enemies as well. Even though again, we had a lot of enemies that had a high physical resistance. But again, nothing can stop the Teslas. And then on the Iron Challenge, the Teslas were banned, so we just spammed down a bunch of Ranger hideouts and let them do their thing with all the vines. And the vines crushed all the spiders, and we win. The Arachnophobia achievement is ours. As well as another little achievement that we got on this level for freeing this guy that was stuck in this cobweb up here. After beating that level, we make it into the forest, and being in the forest finally on an actually sunny level with actual greenery feels pretty nice for a change. Especially considering the fact that every level that we've done up until now was either really snowy, really gray, or it had puke and piss and shit all over it. Anyways, this level had a pretty cool gimmick where it had these little patches of trees all over the roads where the enemies could go under the trees so you hide from all of your attacks, and then you could only continue attacking them once they exit out of the trees. But even with their little tomfoolery right there, they were no match for the power of the Tesla, which is still really surprising because this level has probably the highest concentration of highly armored enemies out of any other level in the whole entire game. Well, maybe there's like one level that has a higher concentration, but this one gets pretty damn close. Pretty much the only enemies in this whole entire level that don't have an extreme physical resistance are enemies like the pillagers, which have a magic resistance, or the wolves, which also have a magic resistance. But outside of that, everyone has a physical resistance, and yet they all still just die to Teslas. The one interesting thing about this level is that it introduces these guys called the Raiders. And in the original tooltip that you get mid-round when you're playing the game, it says that they cost 3 lives when they exit. But then when you click on them, it says that they only cost 1 life. And if you open the encyclopedia, it also says that they only cost 1 life. Now, I've personally never leaked them, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how many lives they actually cost, but I'm assuming it's probably 1, because it says that everywhere except in the original tooltip. And that actually kind of pisses me off, dude, because Troll Champions cost 3 lives as well. And originally, when I played through the Icy levels, I actually didn't check up on how many lives they cost for a really long time, because I thought it was either going to be 1 or 2, because you know they're medium-sized guys. But for some reason, they have enough audacity to think that they cost 3 whole entire fucking lives, despite being squishy little guys you can fucking easily kill with any unit in the entire game. My headcanon is that they robbed the Raider enemy of costing 3 lives. So now the Trolls cost 3 lives, but the Raider costs only 1. Anyways, moving on to the Heroic and Iron stages, they were also pretty easy peasy. I mean, we just used the exact same strategy of spamming Teslas everywhere, and we managed to win. And the funny thing about this level, actually, is that they banned the Mage Tower, as if that would actually do anything. Yeah, anyways, these guys are dead. Anyways, the next stage was actually pretty fun. It was pretty much more of the same. We just kind of spammed Teslas everywhere and got a couple of insta-kills for the stronger enemies. But I think the really cool part about this stage was the boss fights, because this boss is actually pretty unique. I mean, I think all bosses in this whole entire game are unique. They all have something special going for them. But I think the Kingpin is one of the cooler ones. It's one of the more memorable ones. And the reason for that is because he has an ability to heal, and he can run over any of your troops, so he's completely unblockable. And he can steal your gold, and on top of all of that, he runs over the barricades that you have in place in the middle of the map. He runs over them and just beelines straight to the exit. But once again, he's no match for the Tesla spam, and we managed to take him out easily. The Heroic Challenge goes pretty much the same. A bunch of Teslas, a couple more insta-kills, and with that, we move on to the Iron Challenge. And the Iron Challenge made the exact same mistake as the previous level. They tried to ban the Mage Tower again, thinking that it would actually do something. But tell me, dear viewer, did we use any Mage Towers on the Heroic stage of this level? No? Yeah. And with that, we obtained the I Am the Law achievement, and now we have only 1 level left. In this level, we just have to clean up a bunch of Orc stragglers and also kill a couple of these big tanky troll guys, which regenerate and have a lot of HP, so yeah, you already know the procedure. It's insta-killing time. There are also these little warrior goblin enemies that ride wargs, and they're pretty much the same as the Lycan enemies, being like 2-stage enemies where like you kill the warg first, and then the warrior hops off and you have to kill the warrior. So these enemies basically have 2 lives, just like the Lycans or the Spectral or Fallen Knights. Except they're way less annoying and they're actually quite easy to deal with, so Tesla spam to the win, I guess. On the final wave, we kill Gulthak and get the Orcs Must Die achievement. And then we do pretty much the same thing to the Heroic and Iron challenges, where we just kill them in like 1 or 2 attempts or something. And yippee, yay, woo, we got all 130 stars in the game. But unfortunately, our journey is not over yet, because we still have a couple of achievements to get. Most of the achievements that we have to get are just some Easter eggs we missed, where we go into a level and we click a certain thing, And the other achievements that we have to get are just for using a certain tower ability a certain amount of times, or killing a certain amount of enemies with a certain tower. And after a little bit of a grind, we managed to get all the achievements. Yippee! Yahoo! Woohoo! Oh, okay, well, actually, never mind. We didn't get all the achievements because we're missing that specific one right there. Let's Google this. How to get Nevermore. Alright, so apparently all we have to do is go back to the Lord Blackburn campaign and go to the second level right here and click on this fucking crow and we get that achievement as well. This game really just will not let me get out of Lord Blackburn's castle, man. Our journey started in the Lord Blackburn castle and it ends in the Lord Blackburn castle. But anyways, with that crow being clicked, we finally managed to complete every single achievement. So yeah, here you go. I'm just gonna click through all the pages of achievements just so that nobody calls me a fraud and says that I missed something or whatever. I got them all. They're all right there. Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It's pretty awesome. I feel real proud of myself, guys. Yep. Anyways, we got all 130 stars and we got all the achievements and we're out of this game. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Kingdom Rush Frontiers, and happy 15th birthday to the original Kingdom Rush game.